Regarding the death penalty, I don't think there are many people who have any difficulty in their imagination determining or thinking of so depraved a crime where death would not be a just punishment for that crime. I'm afraid any one of us can think in our minds of something that someone would do that would be worthy of death. And I wouldn't either. I have no trouble with the death penalty. What I do have trouble with is people being condemned when they are not guilty, which I'm sad to say happens over and over again. And when death is the penalty, then there can be no restitution for the penalty that is made. If a person is sentenced to a certain number of years, and then it is found out at a later time that they did not do the crime, then the state can make some sort of reparation for that person. If the penalty is death, there can be no reparation to that person, and that is a real problem. Secondly, we have a law against cruel and unusual punishment, and even if we come up with operating procedures that should work, still they are administered by people. And if those people are either intentionally or by virtue of being fools, unintentionally mishandle that operating procedure, then you have a very cruel method of death. Many people say, well, that person was cruel. I'm afraid two wrongs do not make a right, and our being cruel is wrong regardless of what other people have done. So with that in mind, there are two changes that if I were king of the world, I would make. The first is that in the Bible and also in my own mind, in Deuteronomy 17, it says, if a person is accused of a capital crime, a crime where the penalty is death, then the judge has to take three steps. One, they have to inquire diligently into the facts of what exactly happened. Then they have to find out if the accusation is true, and then they have to find out if it is certainly true. The bottom line is that if a person is accused of a capital crime, then the burden of proof of a reasonable doubt is by no means sufficient. The person needs to be proved guilty beyond doubt. You may say, well, that would totally throw out the death penalty. Well, maybe in all but the cases where we know certainly that that is what has happened. And that seems just to me, since, as I say, there can be no restitution made to a person once he is dead if we are wrong. We have to, that person has to be guilty beyond doubt. Secondly, I think the various ways that we have used to execute prisoners are not at all to determine one that is humane, but instead to use means that spare our delicate sensibilities, particularly this lethal injection. The thought that the person appears to be drifting off to sleep keeps us from having to deal with the fact that we are actually engaged in killing another person. In the French Revolution, they came up with the same problem. They had axemen, and the axemen were often incompetent. And The people who were being executed would pay fees to the axeman. Please do a good job. But that didn't mean anything. The axeman might bring the axe down and cut off the top of the person's head rather than at the neck. It could get very, very awful. There was a doctor in France who found this just intolerable. And he came up with a method that was completely humane and, more importantly, completely foolproof. In other words, proof against fools who might use this means. He was Dr. Guillotine. And I think, in my opinion, that the guillotine would be the best mode of execution for us to use. One, it is completely humane. There is nothing more humane than severing a person's head. Two, it is completely foolproof as much as it can possibly be. A 30-pound weight from 14 feet high, a 30-pound weight on top of a diagonal blade from 14 feet high, accelerating at 32 feet per second does the job beautifully. But what it does not do, it does not protect our delicate sensibilities. It shows us, it is clear to all that in fact we have killed someone. And that is an important part of an execution that all should know, that that is what has happened.